All right, so we're going to talk about how to do light project management and task tracking using GitLab issues. First is love to hear from everybody what you want to get out of this, so I can focus the discussion. And I'm also going to say I'm not the expert in this. I'm just somebody who's done this myself. So there are likely better ways than what I'll show you, and probably a lot of those better ways actually come from this group too. But that being said, what does everybody want to get out of this? And we've got the little doc here, which I'll also share as we go. But I don't know, Rebecca, you're in the top left of my Zoom window. Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so for me, this is, I come from a Jira background, and was before joining GitLab really accustomed to using a lot of their features to track work that I did in Jira, right? So some of this is about familiarizing myself with some of the maybe hopefully similar features that GitLab has. And then also just to support the kind of culture of dog fooding. Like, I don't want to be using a bunch of spreadsheets and other things when I hopefully could be using GitLab to do some basic project management. Then within support management, we have a hard time figuring out like what everybody's working on, not when it comes to tickets, but when it comes to internal projects. So, even to know what my other peer managers are doing, I don't really know. I don't know what project status they have or anything. So some personal benefits and hopefully some peer group benefits.
Great. Caleb, what do you want to get out of this today?
So I have attempted to do kind of lightweight project management for my own work for a very long time, tried a whole bunch of different methods, and haven't found anything that's really great yet. I have tried using GitLab for it, but I think that there's a lot for me to learn there.
Michael, how about you?
Yeah, I think for me it's similar where, I was accustomed to using kind of Jira and Confluence for these things in the past. And I found at GitLab, there's ways to do it, but they often feel noisy, and they really just rely on filtering down using labels and making sure labels are always accurate. And I'm wondering if there is a better, more efficient way than what I'm doing today.
Sam, how about you?
Similar to the points already made, I came from previously to GitLab using Jira and Confluence. And I think, to Mike's point, heavily reliant on the accuracy of labels. And I've also balanced finding efficiencies using epics and inefficiencies as well. So I'm interested to see how others approach that.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. And Hila, anything else that we didn't cover already that you'd like to see us cover today? If you're talking, Hila, you're on mute. I think Hila is away from the desk temporarily. All right, that's great. Let me do a screen share here. All right. So I've also used Jira for years before I came to GitLab. I used GitLab a bit too. The previous company I was at was a customer of GitLab. So I have similar background as many of you do as well. So I guess where I'd start is so I'm just going to go create an issue here. I start with issues and use a couple different things when I create one. So test issue 4. So create this issue and submit it, and then put the link in the docs so we can see it. So if I can do it in one issue, I will, which of course you can't always do things in one issue. So the first thing I'll do is, let's say there's a project, or let's say just what we just did, get feedback on what this session should cover. And or not get provide. What I'll first do is I will do a little checkbox bullet list and name each person. So I could say name Caleb. And then do the same for Michael, etc. I'm going to do this for everybody so you also get the email. And Rebecca, and I'll put myself on there too. So what this will do when I hit save is you'll all get added to the watch list for the issue, and you'll get an email saying you were mentioned in this issue. So I'm going to click save changes and refresh, make sure, get the latest, and then notice you're all added to the participant list, which can be annoying if you didn't actually want to get added and know about. So if you don't want to know about notifications, you can unclick notifications. You won't get future ones, but you all just got an email. You can also do that. Let's say, actually, I'm going to just, I don't know, I'll remove Gila from this. So one way is do it this way. I'm going to add Gila back in a different way. So this is saying, I want to know who's done it. Who's done the thing? I want you to provide feedback. So you all did. So I'm not going to do it, but how about you all go to the issue and click the checkbox saying you've done it. And I'll click it for myself here. And you notice it just popped up here. Caleb marked the task as completed just now. And now just Sam did. It's updating as we go, which is kind of neat to show that. That's great for putting things in the summary to track who's done what and keep it all in one place. Now, I don't think you get emails when somebody clicks a task. So you won't get an email when somebody marks things done. You'll see it in history here. So that's one thing I noticed. The other thing is, let's say I don't want to add a task. I want to tag someone in the issue. So I might say at Gila. So she didn't have a task above. What do you think of this? And when I hit comment, so now Gila will be added to the participant list. And we'll also get an email saying something. So now anytime a comment is made, any of the participants will get an email. And then if you tag someone, they get added to the list of who will get an email. And Gila just got an email saying, what do you think of this? So let's say, I don't know, Caleb, you said it was done. Sorry to pick on you, Caleb. But I had another question for you. If I just say, tell me more, Caleb won't get an email. Actually, Caleb will get an email because he's on the participant list. If I want to really make sure that Caleb gets the email, I'll tag him in it. Then I don't have to even keep track. Sometimes the participant lists are really long where I just don't want to check.
And then Wayne, one thing to add there, you will only get a to-do if it is an at mention. So if you said, tell me more, Caleb, he would get an email, but it would not be a to-do. If you say, tell me more at Caleb, then it will become a to-do for Caleb.
That is a very good point. So this issue is also not assigned to anybody. So I'm going to assign myself, and I'll assign somebody else. I don't know. I'll assign Rebecca. So this is when you're assigned, you get email updates. Just like if you're watching, if you're in the notifications list. This also says who actually needs to take action on something. And usually I use this to say, when you're done, unassign yourself is what I'll often do. What this does is then for each person, I'm glad to-dos were brought up, there's two different ways to get lists of things to do for me, things on my list. One is, so personally for me, is issues assigned to me. So I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna go here, go to the same page. I want to keep that one. I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna go to issues, and then I'm gonna go where the assignee is me. And these are all the issues assigned to me, including this one. So I'll use this as a to-do list. This also is shows up here. This number 2, is this accurate? Well, this is issues that I think I'm also a reviewer on, perhaps. But one way is to go to issues, and the assignee equals me. I think I can go here and click issues, and this is across multiple projects. So this is rather than one project. So this gives me all the things. And when I'm done with something, I will I will remove myself from the assignee list. And sometimes also close the issue, so I know it's actually done. The other way to do this is to look at to-dos. So here I'm looking at the to-do list. So these are things where I'm not necessarily an assignee of an issue or a watcher, but that I'm listed as a to-do. And we should see that one. Here, we should see that issue. So this is where this to-do mark is done. You can do other things as well. So that's a to-do list, whether I'm an assigned or not, and you manage that yourself. If you're mentioned explicitly in an issue, I don't know if actually if it's just in the summary, but definitely in a comment, it's added to your to-do list automatically. And then you can go and see it. So this issue should be, looks like it isn't, probably because I'm not mentioned. Let me actually say mark is done and then add it to do. And then if I refresh the to-do list. Yeah, okay. So here I added a to-do for this issue. It'll show in this list. So I can either mark it as done when I'm done with it, clicking here, or go into my to-do list, which again was here, and click done. And the more people you have on an issue, the more challenging this all becomes. And the less people also get overwhelmed with too many emails. They can also get overwhelmed with too many issues assigned to them and too many issues with to-do. So you have to, I personally weekly go through, well, and I don't go through it weekly. I will look at my assigned issues probably every 2 weeks just to make sure I haven't missed anything. And I'll go through my to-dos every week. And often if something's open on my to-do list, I know it's done. And I've already done it. I just didn't click the done button, but it does help me catch things where I was like, oh, I missed an email or somebody mentioned me in one of my feedback. And I think actually, Michael or Sam, you did that recently and I caught it. I missed it when you tagged me in the issue, and a week later I caught it in my to-do list, which is great, right? I missed it in the, apologies for that. That it took me a little while to get back to you. But I find this to work really, really well on a per issue basis where you can kind of organize things. And this list might be not just a checklist. I'll sometimes also do it as a table, like person action done or something like that. And then I'll put, name. So it's not just, it might be different things. So do this. And then a checkbox. So this works. And then, I don't know, I'll pick on somebody else, say, Gila, do that. And a checkbox, and I have to do like this. And do the preview, make sure that looks right before I save it. Now the checkbox is not working, but I'll sometimes do it this way as well. I think the checkbox just works in a bulleted list. Something I did, oh, got 3 of them here. So I'll sometimes do it that way as well. If it's different things, I can also put it in the list. I could say, a dash and what I'm asking to do if it's not the same thing. This can get really unwieldy as well if people aren't keeping up with their assigned issues and their to-dos. So that's a good thing to ask people to do. It's also a good thing. It also can get a little unwieldy if the issue has a whole bunch of text in it, description of this and that and the other, and then has an action item list later. That works, but can get a little challenging. Like, what does my thing do? I've seen issues with like 3 pages of text and my name is mentioned 3 times. And I'm not sure what's for me, what I've done versus not, etc. So the bigger the summary gets, the harder it is to track who's doing what and for everybody to figure out if they've done that thing or not. So this is where I'd start. Thoughts or comments on this?
No, I think this makes a lot of sense, Wayne. Thanks. One thing that I've had challenges with in the past is when people will respond to something with an emoji reaction. And I don't think there's any way to get notified of that. So it's almost like I have to, if I haven't heard something, I have to go back to the issue, have it in like a list of things for me to check up on, go and see it and see if there's an emoji reaction to something. And that doesn't feel very efficient or a good way to do this. I don't know if that's just like a best practice that we need to communicate to our teams around don't use emoji reactions, or if there's a way to do this that I just don't know of.
Yeah, that's a great point. So you can do an emoji reaction in the issue itself and also in a comment. My clickability right now is not working. Not waiting long enough.
Oh, I've seen, yeah, you're in a weird state. I've seen that happen before.
Maybe we should file an issue about that. We should. Doesn't happen to be that often. So yeah, so when that's done, either on an issue or a comment, I believe you're added to the notification list. I've done that accidentally. I was like, why am I on all these notifications on all these issues? It's because I emoji tagged something, and thank you, Caleb, for adding that one. But nobody gets an email about it. And notice it's also not, I believe it's not in the change list either. Like you don't see it in the change list. So some will do kind of, have you looked at this or not via a list like this with their names. Some will say, please emoji tag it. And then you have to scroll over it to see who's done it, who's done the emoji tags. Yeah, I think emoji tags are great to express sentiment. Like I like this or I don't like this, but not to say I've read this or I've done this. So I would say that's a best practice or a good pattern to do is to ask people, name people explicitly with a list and a checkbox, then asking them to emoji tag it, because sometimes it's 30 people you want them to have do something, right? And trying to scroll over to this list and seeing a list of 30 names is really, really pretty difficult.
Right.
But I think the emoji tagging is good to express sentiment. Like on the there's a recent MR that was highly discussed relating to refresh grants. And I looked at like, what do people care about in this? I was looking for that. And I looked at the number of comments on various topics and also the number of emoji tags. And like some of them had 100 emoji tags. And I just looked over, I didn't look at the list of people, I just looked at the number. And that was a great way to figure out what people were more interested in versus less interested in.
So maybe the guidance is to use emojis almost as like a quantitative measure, not as any kind of qualitative, and not any time when there needs to be a clear communication of it. It's just kind of that general, like you would on, I guess, on like social media.
Yep, agreed. That's a really good point, Michael.
Wayne, this is a specific thing. One thing I'd love to cover here is best practices for moving an issue. So let's say we wanted to move this to the GitLab org group. What do you see as best practices?
I haven't done too many of those. I want to talk about labels. I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about cloning. You can clone an issue if you're doing the same thing again. I don't think it's actually in the UI. I think you have to type it, but I learned this recently. You can say clone /clone, and then it will create a new issue, which it copies everything from it. I believe, including the participants, the to-dos, etc. I think you can clone to a project as well, so it makes a copy of it. Moving so that would be if you're doing the same thing again and you don't want to retype everything, well, you wouldn't have to retype it. You could copy and paste the text, but that wouldn't get the notifications copied or other things, or the label that doesn't copy the labels easier. When you clone, it copies just everything, if not almost everything. You can do a new issue. There's
a question about cloning.
And okay, go ahead. And then let's talk about move after we talk about cloning.
Is it possible to do the clone via the API?
My guess would be yes, but I don't know. It's great.
I wasn't able to find it in the documentation because I can imagine some people would really like to be able to do that en masse.
It's a great point. My guess it is possible via API, but just a guess. So moving an issue. So if you click on move, you then choose the project. So which project did you want to try moving it to, Sam?
I don't know, like the parent GitLab.org.
And this is,
I think this might be more of a problem for larger customers, including GitLab. Just I find it very challenging to actually find the thing that I want to move to in this list.
Again, the names here, I just did GitLab. Of course, that's not a good example, but if I even do just GitLab.org, there's zillions of them.
Yeah.
Like which is the right one?
And the list, I think, cuts off after a certain amount, because I've had this challenge as well, Sam, where we'll have like an epic container and we want to create an issue or a sub epic within it, and it asks you for the project, I think, not even the group.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can never get the GitLab parent gitlab.org project. Well, sometimes I can, sometimes I can't, but it's like the epic I'm adding it to is in that project. Why isn't that the thing that's the first
totally
project that shows up?
I generally find a issue that I have pinned that's in the right place, and I just click the drop down in the from next to the header of the name of the issue and create a new issue from there. And I find that to be the quickest path, because then it won't ask me for the group or subproject.
Yeah, I had this issue last night creating that email verification issue in your epic. I had to go around and exit and just go to the issue list and create it from there, which was annoying.
Oh, yep. I've had the same experience, and I did some little notes here on some of the things to do, something for Caleb to do, and for Michael and or Sam. But yeah, I don't have a better way of doing it. I did exactly what you did. Is I went and found the project to move it to, and then figured out the name, and then moved it around. Cloning. Oh, labels. So, okay, this is one issue, right? That's kind of a simplistic case. The simple case probably meets 80% of the need, but let's say there's multiple issues. And so I will add a label. So I'm going to create a label. You can search for existing labels. I'm going to say this is project. Oops. I'm going to create a project label, project, simple project management test. And I'll choose a color. We'll make it dark violet. Okay, so I didn't actually assign it. I just created it. So simple. So I typed in, after I created it, simple.
It's interesting that when you create a label within an issue, it doesn't automatically apply it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Can you while I'm doing this other thing, can you add a comment to this issue saying, hey, Wayne, can you file an issue about that?
Yeah.
So I choose that label. The issues now assigned to that will be now assigned to that label, simple project management test. I could remove the label by hitting the X. And now I'm going to click on the label. And it's going to show me all the issues with that label. Recent searches or label equals. I'm going to go into that issue, and I'll do that clone. Say clone. I want a second copy of this. So it shows clone 2, so they're related. This issue is cloned. So now this is going to be the same thing, of course, but I'll mark this other one done. So I should have 2 issues here. So test issue examples. So I'm going to mark this one as done. And I will also close this one. Now, still here in issues, notice I have two issues, one open, one closed. I click all, and it shows those. One of these will show in my open issues list and my to-do list, because I left it open for one on both and closed for one on the other. So this is a good way to get just a list of related issues, part of a project. And that is it. There's other ways to do things like this. For example, with epics, and then putting epics in issues, which I think we may want to do that as well. But any thoughts on what we've discussed so far? Labels, cloning, etc.
I think for me, this all makes sense and works really well. I think where we run into challenges, at least me, I've seen, is where I've forgotten to put a label on an issue. And then it's like, oh, it's not on my boards now. It's not in my list that I'm looking at. And I'll stumble across it somehow and then realize and fix it. But is there a way to somehow more easily surface those things? Maybe it's like a query that created by me, but doesn't have this label or something. I don't know if there's techniques that y'all have used that help you find those.
I'm going to repeat something Gila said to me. Put Gila on the spot. Is I search my email to find that issue. Is the email which she said that was like, yes, I do exactly the same thing.
Oh no, I mean I can find it if I think of it.
The search in email is often better than the search of the trail of changes of issues is often a faster way for me to find the issues of interest than searching in GitLab, which I think
Yeah.
the search in GitLab should probably be improved. Maybe it has been improved. I've just gotten trained myself to not use it, but that's what I do.
I have fairly good luck when I know the issue exists and want to find it. And I actually work mostly out of my email instead of like the to-do list. I go through my inbox every few hours and clear them out.
Yeah, I personally don't use to-dos because I can't follow threads. So if I'm not actively mentioned, I can't see the chain of comments and I don't know what's occurring. So I personally live out of my email.
Yeah.
I follow the status of issues and MRs, and then link in to comment. So I personally use my email as my to-do.
Yeah, so the challenge that I'm facing, Wayne, is less of I need to find something and I don't know where it is. It's more of I created 10 issues related to this effort and I forgot to label one of them. So now I'm looking at my board or my backlog or I'm doing my milestone planning, and that one isn't in the list for me to even think about and consider when I'm filtering down, like, okay, what are we actually going to work on?
Yep.
And that's where things get lost. And then it's like something has to happen to remind me of it, or I stumble across it to recover it.
It's a good point. So I actually just learned about a new feature as I was trying. So I will do certain things, author by me, label is or is, I think you can say is none. You can say issues I've created where it doesn't have any labels, which may not meet your need. It could be where label is not, and what do we call
Yeah, so
it?
this might be a search I'll just do every so often that's like written by me, but missing the group.
Yeah, like it does have these labels, but not
activation.
those labels. I just saw another feature. This is the one I didn't know existed. I don't know if it's new or not, but my reaction is a specific. So you can say where your reaction, where you didn't react or you did. So any issue where I was the author and I reacted, probably more interesting for me, where I had a reaction. Here's issues where I had a reaction. I didn't know this feature existed. That's kind of neat.
Pretty cool.
So going back to,
we would benefit from being able to create our own simple bots of I created an issue and it doesn't have a growth label, specific to our department, just to remind us that it appears something's missing.
Yep, that's a good point. So on this issue, I'm going to let's do some stuff with epics. So I am going to, there's a promote to epic. So an epic contains issues and has an epics also have a start and an end. Oh, I forgot one of them before I do that. So due date. On an issue, I will often set a due date. And I think that's actually part of our values that practices we say is we always want to have a due date, even if we don't meet it, it sets an expectation. So I'll set it, I don't know, I set a due date on this April 7th. What this will do is it'll email everybody watching the issue, I think 3 days before. Say, hey, this issue is coming due. It is a good reminder. I do like that rather than creating tasks and other things like in Slack or a Google, a Google task with a specific date, although I still will do that sometimes as well. Because this reminds everybody this is coming due. You won't get another email notification about it. When it's past due, you don't get notification, but I will set the due date just for that reason. I will also, if there's something I really want to remind myself to act on, when I get the email on an issue that I want to I will click the add a task in Gmail for this email. There's a way to do that, and it copies the email, a link to the email, and then set a date on it, so I get a reminder on it. But I will use this feature often as well to set a due date, if it's reasonable to have one. But let's convert this to an epic. So I'm going to say promote to epic. All right, so now it's an epic. I'm just going to change it instead of issue, test. Not get confused. Test epic for project management examples. All right, and notice now as a start date, a due date, it also can have labels. So we're going to put that. I'm going to put that project management one. I'm remembering the wrong name, aren't I?
Wait, I didn't notice. Did it lose the labels you had on it when you promoted it, or did it?
I don't believe labels are the same between issues and epics.
Oh, that might be. And I think labels on epics are per project. Simple is what it starts with. So I'm gonna maybe it's different, maybe it didn't. But so it won't matter. So I don't have a start date. Let's say it's well, let's not mess with start dates. That's actually less important. To me, at least right now. I want to add issues to this. So here I'm going to say I want to add an issue. Let's add that existing issue. The existing issue is going to be the one I cloned this to. So now I have an issue that's part of this. If I go to this issue and refresh it, it says it's part of this epic, which links over to here. Now this epic has this issue. You can also add new issues. So I'm going to say add a new issue test for. I could use a project. It's that same. I usually create the issues separately and then add them in the project rather than add them in here. We have some of the same challenge here, but which project is it in? So I'm not going to add it. What I will do is I will clone this guy again. And I believe that what that should do is make it so that it is part of the, yep, it's cloned. And then if I open up that one, it should be part of the epic too. Let's see. Yep, and it's part of the epic. This other one, if I refresh this guy, now this issue has two epics. And I'm not as up on labels, sorry, on epics as probably others are. But you can also have start times, end times on them, and then have a Gantt chart on them, on the epics that have labels. So I don't know if somebody else wants to open it. If somebody else wants to volunteer to show what they do with those, that'd be awesome. Or if not, that's fine too. But others on this call, I think, know that better than I do.
I can show what happens when you don't take care of it, because I think this is to Sam's point earlier, where there's some trade-offs in efficiency that come with using the epics and sub-epics to have a roadmap and Gantt chart. And it really requires you keeping these start and end dates up to date.
Mm-hmm.
And as we know, we plan ambitiously, things often shift milestones, and then the burden is to go and update all of those dates for all of those things that were affected. And I try to do it every now and then, but I can tell you I haven't been as good about it recently. So I can share my screen and we can see.
That'd be awesome, Michael.
And I haven't been as diligent about making everything an epic either anymore because of that. So this is the list of all the adoption team issues in epics. And you can see we have not even one or two layers, but I have things in here that are, this is an overall epic for just project details. And then within there, we have overall epics for the individual experiment ideas with epics for the UX engineering and experiment tracking. So this is a lot of kind of just maintenance you have to do here to keep this all up to date. And I don't think I've done a great job at it. We'll see here. This is the roadmap. So this is all driven off of those dates, and it's pretty good. When you have to scroll left and right, it can get a little challenging, but you can actually expand and collapse the different parent epics and see the sub epics underneath it, which is cool. But like the add new repo CTA, we are still in development on that right now. So these things clearly have not been updated. I need to go in here and update all these and slide them out and get those dates in there. So I think no one else really other than me is looking at this. So I haven't made it a priority to stay on top of it. But I think if there was some better auto updating of dates based on milestones, this would be pretty powerful. And I know that they just released a board view for epics, I think in 13.10, which is still, I'd say, missing the features we need to be able to really leverage it. But if I tried creating one the other day, And basically you can get a single label column. So you can't do like multiple labels like group adoption and open. So you just get like a whole list of the open ones, a whole list of the closed ones, and then just my stuff in the middle. So it's really not there yet, but I think that they have plans to make the Epic board more like the issue board, which will, I think, be pretty helpful.
And that's a really good point. Let's actually, this is the one other thing I thought about in advance I wanted to show. So this is a good example. This is a board showing issues based on a search. You do a search of issues. You can say, put those in a board.
Yeah, these are epics. The issue board would probably, I can go to that, would be, it's much more powerful than this.
Yeah, it's a good point. Thank you. And then, so it shows issues by, you can show it by which milestone it's in. So you see milestones up there, and then it shows the labels. So it's showing, milestone of backlog, 1310, 1311, et cetera. And those are draggable to set the order. Right. So, product managers or project managers can't, if you're doing kind of just project management, can drag things, say what's more important versus less important, so that when teams say, hey, go pick the next most important thing, the person, the DRI who decides that can order the list so somebody can know what the next important thing is. And you can see here who it's assigned to, you can see the labels, et cetera. And usually when doing this, I will open up a zillion tabs. I want to know everything in 1311 and do a review of it. I will look at, let's say, 1311 and open up each one to a separate tab. That's kind of my little to-do list to review. And I'll actually do that with each release. But I think these boards are very, very useful as well.
Yeah, and you can add a bunch of additional searches here. So depending, you can do multiple labels. One thing that we do, and I think Sam does as well, is we'll tag things like engineering with this in the issue title, and you can just search on that and it will actually filter down to those titles. So if you have a scheme where you're specifically, you can do that.
I try to use the syntax to the start of my issues and then a colon, and then the kind of issue name, and then it makes searching within GitLab far more powerful.
So the ways that I've structured these boards is either by milestone like this, or there's another view. I don't know if I have it here, which was more of like a Kanban flow. So you can kind of see what's in design, what's in development, what's in review, and keep track of the work as it's flowing through. So that's another way that you can use these boards.
Great. So what else? I guess I'll ask the person, are there any other kind of light project management things that this group has done that we haven't discussed today? So things that you've learned and things that you do that you think others would be interested in seeing or talking about.
One thing that I use, it's not really dog fooding, but I'll mention, because I say this to people when they're new to GitLab, is this is one of the things that really helped me keep track of my work over time, is I use Todoist, and they have a browser extension where if you're on an issue, you can just hit add to Todoist, and then you can organize it more effectively in Todoist than you can using the GitLab to-dos, because there's some things in there that I have just in a bucket that's like keep an eye on. So once a week I'll go in and just kind of review and see what's going on with them, or things that I need to take action on today. And so I can show actually what it looks like if
yeah, and actually do that, and then I'll show you how I do that in Gmail as well, but let's see how you do it.
Yeah, and there's probably more in there than it should be, but let's say that this test issue, let's say I'm going through my email in the morning. This is typically what I do. I get up, I load up, I've got 20 or 30 emails to go through, and I'll try to get through most of them, but there'll be some that's like, oh, I need to come back to this. This is going to require me to do a little research or some thought around it. So I want to carve out like 10, 20 minutes for this. And so I'll just click this little browser extension, and this is all the different to-dos I have. And you can just hit this little add website as task. And you can, add a little note like, hey, if you need it as a reminder, or just hit add task. And then I basically every so often, like I check my email and then I check my Todoist, or if there's like, now I'm getting into work mode, I've got 2-3 hours uninterrupted, I'll start in Todoist and go through those things that I have to clean up, and then dig into some meatier work.
That's great. And I brought up an example here. I'll share as well. So here's an example of, the email trail and one of the issues we've been doing things with. Oh, and that reminds me, when making changes, you can change it many times, of course, but when you add a comment, the first time you add a comment, that's what's emailed. If you edit it, people don't get an email again. So it's useful to do the preview before hitting save. Because I often realize, oh, wait, I put in the wrong link or something like that. So as doing a comment, as soon as I hit comment, an email will be sent. If I want to verify it a little bit more before I hit the button, I'll do preview to make sure it looks right. Because when I edit it after the fact, somebody doesn't get an email. But anyway, when I go to the email, I'll often send or set up a due date for something, so everybody gets an email about it. If it's really something I want to track a little more closely in that, or specifically to me, when I get the email, because it's hard to follow threads, I'll click add to tasks in Gmail, and then it will it added a task here. If I click on edit on this, it didn't choose a date, but it's the title of it, the link to the email, and then I can choose a date and say, I want to be reminded about this on this day. And then I have something for that day, which is kind of neat. Other things things that this group has done that we haven't covered in this area that you think others would be interested in learning about. Things we haven't covered, or things like, this works for me, this is great, but what about X? Or what would she do Y? What are things that you'd like to do in GitLab, or don't know, or want to know if it's possible to do in GitLab in this arena that you'd like us to talk through as a group?
I guess for me, one thing I wish, and I think this is more what you get with Jira, I wish there was an easier way for people that weren't as close to the work, like team members who know the right labels, know the right boards, know the searches, to be able to kind of just come somewhere and see the work. Like in Jira, it's like that team. You go to that team, that project, and you can see their backlog, you can see everything. I wish there was a cleaner way to do that in GitLab. I think it would really help for me seeing like, hey, what's Sam's team up to? What are they doing? Is there something in there that I can draw inspiration from, or I might have an opinion on? I don't find it's easy to just poke around and understand what everyone else is doing. You either get a 50,000 issue list that you have to filter down, or you're kind of left to try to figure out what the right project is to poke in.
What I do, and my use case is straightforward, not in a good way or bad way, just is I will go to the board for the team, search for the group label, and then also restrict to a milestone. So I want to know for this group, for this milestone, what are they planning? And it'll show it in the various things. And that's been a great way for me to do it. But that's a very specific use case, and we kind of design it to make that possible. So like, yeah, I don't know of a way I don't personally know of a way to do that. Like that would be what you described, Michael, but yeah. I agree, something like that would be useful. It may be possible today, I just don't know about it.
Yeah. The other thing that I struggle with is that I can't, if I try to stay even more organized with issues and epics, if there's a piece of work that Mike and I are both collaborating on, that piece of work cannot be in both of our epics. So I'm either going to break Mike's organization to try and keep myself more organized, or vice versa. So that's something I struggle a lot with in terms of trying to use epics to be organized, and then I'm really forced to live and die by labels.
Yeah, that's a good point. Issues can only be in 0 or 1 epics. And also there's that concept of scope labels, where the scope label says we only want 1 label with this scope. So it might be like which team is it, or which group is it? If it says group threat insights or group product intelligence, when you change it to group product intelligence, the other one will be removed because it's part of that scope label. But if you really wanted to be part of multiple, it's a challenge. What I'll do with that, a lot of people will tag issues saying, this is interesting to this, or this is dependent on this, so they'll just mention it. I will add this blocks in an issue. So this issue blocks this other issue, and it shows up in a different list. So if I let me share my screen again, that's actually a good thing to bring up. Share. find the right window to share that is. So this is not a perfect answer to what you're looking for, Sam, but it's what I do in those kind of situations is when I do a linked issue, I'll do a blocks or is blocked by, and then I'll choose the issue there. And just add this is probably the same one again, but okay. So here it says it blocks, so it shows up in a different list. So if I go to this issue, it'll say this is blocked by. Different than related to, is blocked by. That related to is just related to. Blocked by is this is dependent on that, and I will use that blocked by very explicitly when things are blocked by something. So I don't know if that helps much, but that probably helps in some situations. We've been talking about this. I thought this discussion would go 20 minutes and it went a good 50 minutes. It was just fine. Lots of good stuff. Anything else that you'd like to be able to do that we haven't discussed that you'd like to throw by the team to see what they do about it?
The only other one that's top of mind for me is that issues can't appear in a roadmap view. So something has to be within an epoch for that time period to appear. So then you're just spending a lot of time spinning up child epochs purely for something to appear in a roadmap view. So that's something that I would love to see, that the ability for issues to appear directly in the roadmap view. So I think it would add a lot more clarity to that view. That
makes sense. And what I'd say on that is we talked about it'd be great for this, it'd be great for that. What I would challenge everyone to do in the spirit of everyone can contribute, meaning this case everybody can create an issue, is if you were the first to bring up an idea on a way to improve GitLab, please do file the issue, because it's great to discuss it. And we generally do that anyway, but I wanted to call it out explicitly. It's great when we discuss it, but the teams the product managers that are responsible for those portions may watch this video, may not, but adding the issue for them to look at and think about would be great. My guess is there's probably issues already out there, already in the backlog for all the things we discussed, but it can't hurt to add a new issue, then they'll triage it. They'll determine that if that's really the case. And also then they'll point you at the right direction to say, hey, go vote that issue up, because it's important to know where it is in the list. So please do file the issues for the things that we discussed today where we'd like to see the improvements.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Wayne. This was good. It was good to just collaborate on better ways to work, and I really liked it. So thank you for organizing it.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. And as expected, I am not the expert in this. I'm just one of many users, but I learned a lot too from the rest of the group. So awesome.
Thank you all so much. Bye-bye.
Hey, have a great day. Cheers.